All right. Hello. Welcome back to this is episode 8 of Face to the in the Crowd.
Welcome back,
Um
everyone.
mhm. So today's Super Bowl Sunday. Um it was not a great Super Bowl because it had two teams nobody wanted in the Super Bowl, but that's besides the point. Josh Allen made that fourth down anyways. But what we want to talk about today is more we want to talk about something I've seen a little bit of this happening, just sort of some of the fractures I'm seeing on the political right within America.
hmm
I know when we were talking about this, like I described it as fractures in conservatism or fractures in the MAGA movement. Sort of. That's kind of what we're aiming at here for this episode. First of all, I guess let's just start with this here. That I just added. So this is from Libs of TikTok. So during the Trump attended the Super Bowl. I believe he's the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl.
Oh,
At least I
wow.
heard that. I don't know if that's true. I want to say it sounds pretty true from what I could find. And of course, he got cheers while Taylor Swift gets booed. To be fair, when the Chiefs entered the field, they all got booed as well. And Taylor Swift being tied to the Chiefs, it kind of makes sense. So
Sure.
um, it's probably the closest thing to a home game anyone has had in the Super Bowl. The Eagles, just because it seemed that they had the majority of the fans on their side. But
hmm
anyways, it was a complete humiliation of the Chiefs because they didn't deserve to be there. The Bills deserved to be there because they won that game. If it wasn't for two questionable calls from the refs, and Josh Allen 100% deserves a Super Bowl win at some point in his career, or at least to make it to the Super Bowl for starters. Um, anyways, so the thing is, so of course, lives of TikTok. Chaya is her name, I believe. She says that the world is healing. Is this really true? Is Trump really healing the world? I don't really know, but there obviously is a massive cultural
hmm
shift going on at a lot of different levels of our society. It seems that
Yeah.
there's even a lot of celebrities who like Trump to a certain extent, or they just recognize the shift towards these, I guess, right wing values, or just the general rejection of far left progressivism. That could also be it as well.
Well, yeah, and just seeing Taylor Swift booed at the Super Bowl is like honestly kind of bizarre. That's nothing I thought I would ever see in my lifetime after how like cultishly popular she's been the last couple years.
Right,
But
right.
I mean, of course, like you said, since she's connected to the Chiefs and since people weren't happy about the Chiefs being there, I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, this is Taylor Swift, one of
Hmm.
the biggest, if not the biggest, musical artists of all time.
Right. Yeah, it's quite fair. That Super Bowl is so weird. I mean, getting the Chiefs getting shut out in the first half was not what I was anticipating. I mean, I was coming in expecting an Eagles win, just because the Eagles with the number one defense in the league against the a weakened form of the Chiefs offense, I thought was going to be a matchup in the Eagles' favor. I was not expecting Jalen Hurts to uh, carry most of the momentum of the offense, with Saquon being pretty well contained. But anyways, I'm starting to ramble
I
about the actual
confess that
Super
I
Bowl.
did
That's
not watch it at all. I haven't, like, I've watched maybe two games of football in my entire life, so.
yeah.
But it's
Yeah, I
definitely like a cultural touchstone, I know. And Trump being
mhm,
there and Trump being cheered at such a prominent sporting event is
right.
definitely a big deal. Would I say
Mhm.
he's healing the world? I think that's a little bit far. I think people are prone to make kind of these sweeping, overstated comments about Trump and what he's doing, but I do think he's so far had a generally positive impact on the United States.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, like even like the advertisements for the Super Bowl, I mean, there were a couple of like feels like extras from the ultra progressive period, but like even just watching just football throughout the weeks, there seems to be a shift in the advertisement from your super progressive talking points to, I guess, a little bit more of a variety in that. I could just
Sure.
be, I guess, gaslighting myself into thinking that, and it never really was super progressive, but it certainly seems to be trending in that direction. But it's kind of interesting. Like even just like looking at like Bud Light, which had the major controversy with Dylan Mulvaney, and then
Mhm.
they have been basically doing damage control since then. They fired pretty much everyone
Yeah.
involved in that stunt, and they're trying to repair their brand. And it's I mean, who knows really how successful that's going to end up being. Um, will they ever? I actually really don't know how their business is doing at the moment. Have they made some improvements or not? I don't fully know, but it is kind of interesting to just see the general vibe shift of oh shoot, Trump wins the popular vote, a Republican wins the popular
Mhm.
vote for the presidency. These people have basically collectively said, no, we don't want these ultra progressive talking points shoved down our throats
Yeah.
24/7, which I think is a good thing, and I think the world is healing at least somewhat in that area.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like, we don't want either political party to have like a monopoly on the talking points. Like, we need to hear
Hmm.
from both sides, I think, even if I personally think one side tends to be more right than the other side. But you still need to hear a variety of views. And if we're seeing a greater variety of views in public discourse, that's a good thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not like the all the advertisements are being like completely whitewashed or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like they've still, it just seems that they're actually showing true diversity in a lot of the ads. Um, which of course previously that felt almost white exclusionary. Now it's kind of just everyone's in there, and I don't really see anyone complaining about that.
Yeah, which is
If
great.
we're, if we're talking just like the casting of the actors and advertising, but yeah, but I guess kind of so. I guess in other news, let's get back here. So in other news, Brett Cooper has returned to YouTube
Hmm.
like crazy. So let's see here. So first of all, she released her trailer. Looks like 13 days ago.
I believe so, yes.
Here, this trailer, and it got 2.7 million views. But the thing that was interesting about this trailer is that it actually was for I don't know how long, but it was number one on trending on YouTube overall. Over all of YouTube, number one on trending for some period of time, which is I think incredibly rare for a political channel, much less a right wing Gen Z political channel to be able to
Hmm.
make that on trending. I don't know how many times that's happened. Whenever I look at trending, it's usually going to be like some like purely entertainment type video, Mr. Beast doing
Right.
whatever, Dude Perfect doing whatever type of video. It's stuff like that would make number one at trending. But and then she released her first episode a few days later, which has 3.5 million views from only 10 days. And then she's released two other episodes, both of which well over a million views, which, of course, is basically just the nail in the coffin for the comments section, which if I checked it a little bit, and the comments section I think is um, below 4 million subscribers. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
down
dropped
to
below 4 million
3.95.
subscribers.
How many views is a comment section video getting these days?
Um,
Because back in the day, I
Not a
feel like it
lot.
was
I
like
mean, just these
comment
two.
section view, 3 days later, you've got
Hey
a
guys,
million
thanks for joining.
views on it. Yeah, now it's
Yeah,
just a couple thousand. That's
now
like
it's just a
nothing.
few thousand, not even cracking 50K, maybe a couple 50Ks here. But those 10 days ago, 10 days ago, Brett Cooper has a video with 3
Yeah.
million views. Reagan's getting 52,000. I think that the Daily Wire completely underestimated the impact of having Brett as the host of the show. Actually,
Well, yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I think personally, I think what would have been best is if they wanted Reagan to do something that just create a new show and build it
Sure.
from the ground up. Because I feel like just having Reagan take over was just not a really great play. It made a lot of people
Mhm.
unhappy. And I mean, clearly that's reflected within the views, and that's going to be a massive hit for the Daily Wire because, at least to my knowledge, the comment section with Brett was their most lucrative channel. I believe it's the second most subscribers behind Ben. But I'd want to say, from what I've seen, the comment section seems to bring in more views, which means more revenue.
Right.
So that's going to be a massive hit for Daily Wire.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
And
Brett Cooper
follow
is,
like Ben Shapiro very much, but my impression was always that he would release a video every so often and get a ton of views, whereas Brett would release a video like every day generally and get like 1 million views on it. So yeah, if now the channel that was getting 1 million views on a video every day is not even cracking 100K, like that's going to be a huge hit in revenue.
Absolutely. And then, like, even so, Brett Cooper's new channel is at 1.3 million subscribers already. And she has 4 videos. Obviously, these videos blew up, so she's probably getting a lot, having no problem getting the algorithm to recommend her content at this point.
Yeah.
It's possible, though, that the algorithm is still confused a little bit with people searching Brett Cooper. The comment section may end up showing up still, or comment section content, just because something like a pretty instantaneous change that massive, it probably confused the algorithm a little bit. So it's hard to say,
Yeah.
but this, I would expect her to be probably even up to 3 million subscribers by the end of the year. That might be a bold guess, but I think that she can absolutely do it, especially once all of the subscribers to the comment section come over to her new channel.
Yeah, I would not be at all surprised.
I think right now, though, what she needs to do is she needs to start uploading shorts as well. Because, I mean, just doing one episode every few days, because I think that her shorts are one of the reasons why she blew up so much, is just the sheer amount of shorts. And like shorts, like the thing is, like they don't make as much money, but they do get a lot more views, a lot more traction. They bring a lot more people to your channel. At least that's my knowledge of it. I have a friend who got to 500,000 subscribers doing pretty much just shorts.
Wow.
I think 500,000. Some multiple of 100,000. I think. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what it is. So sure. So I think that would be a good technique. I'm not really sure what her plan is here. Maybe she wants to do it a little bit less frequently and just do the show every couple of days. I mean, with 1.3 million subscribers, 1 million views a video, you're going to have no problem paying everybody.
Yeah, what she's doing now is clearly working. I mean,
it's clearly working.
To really launch it off, I'm sure she can with like shorts and whatever else you do.
And like, and even though like at the start you can tell that like this is slightly different format than the comment section. These are longer episodes, about 30-minute or so episodes, compared to her shorter 10-minute videos from the comment section. So this is a little bit more of a traditional show, and I think that that's what we're going to be seeing from her new channel going forward. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see.
But I guess I really, so this first episode, which you haven't watched, correct?
No, I have not. You haven't.
So this one about right-wing cancel culture, I thought was a very, very good episode to start off with. You start off criticizing your own, which is something that I admire anyone's capability to do, because I think it needs to be done more. Obviously, you have people like Shoe on Head on the opposite side of the spectrum, but Shoe on Head very frequently criticized those of the left. And I mean, that's why she has such a massive bipartisan following over there. And I think Brett also has a pretty large bipartisan. I know, I mean, the VTuber Nux has referred to Brett as the right-wing Shoe on Head before, so there might be at least some relation there. That's kind of where my thought process went there.
I'm not really convinced of that though, because I feel like, I mean, Shoe on Head's definitely liberal, and all the people who are saying that she's like a red pillar in disguise or whatever are just wrong. But
yeah, I mean,
she does have more like sympathy.
Very clearly economic left.
Yeah,
like she is a socialist. Like
right.
She absolutely is. But like, if you look at these let's look at the last videos, responding to Democrat criticism, basically explaining why the Democrats lost. Why are men moving right? And then we have like some like brain rot content, whatever. America's and like most of her videos do seem to be even like defending Wendigoon, who's a Christian. Like a lot of her content does seem to be a lot more, I guess, centrist. Which I
Yeah,
mean, she says
exactly.
that she is culturally centrist, which I think makes a lot of sense of why she's oftentimes considered to be in the center, sometimes to the right to a radical leftist, is because of that, despite her economic opinions definitely being left wing.
Yeah, but like my point is that well, she's clearly somewhere on the left. She makes videos that kind of sympathize with the right, whereas Brett Cooper generally didn't do that in my experience. She was clearly on the right, and she made pro-right videos.
Definitely, and part of that could be the Daily Wire's influence.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a good feeling that there was at least some things that she was not allowed to say under the Daily Wire, and I feel like this first video could be something showing that I'm gonna break a little bit free from the right-wing echo chamber just to kind of take a little bit of a stance away from that echo chamber and try to be play a little bit more into the centrist, be a little bit more critical of your own, which of course is a good thing. This is not, of course, saying that Brett is an actual centrist. Personally, I do think she's a lot more to the center than someone like myself would be, just in general. But yeah, I guess that's that. But yeah, this first video of hers I thought was kind of good because it did expose, I guess you could say, some of the hypocrisy on the right, who in some instances has weaponized cancel culture for their own purposes. Of course, I strongly believe that the right would be no different than the left should the right have been in the same state of power within the media chamber at the time. I really don't think that we're just that much better. Of course, like, yes, the right at the moment is championing free speech and is very anti-censorship, but of course that has not been the case throughout the history, and we were only put in that position mostly for the purpose of partisan politics.
Right.
And yet drink after that. Run on sentence.
But I think the topic of the video does kind of reveal what we're more generally talking about this week, which is that there are some fractures or at least some cracks in conservatism and even within MAGA more generally. I mean, you see Elon Musk on here, who is a controversial MAGA figure, kind of.
And I think like I can't remember what her name is. I think it's this woman in the top right of the thumbnail, but she I guess she basically got made, I want to say, jokes or something regarding the left, making fun of the left and the mistakes they made during the presidential election. But then people pulled up old tweets of her pushing for the COVID vaccine or something like that. And then, of course, just like how the left at the smallest thing could alienate someone, it felt very, very similar coming from the right, where, oh, if you don't agree with me 100% on everything, then we're going to kick you out of the movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elon's an interesting figure as well.
Interesting.
I'm not convinced Elon is 100% on the people's side. It's hard to say, though. He's done a lot of good with his money. Even if you want to say more so than other celebrities, I'd say that's probably a fair assessment. But I'm just too suspicious. I mean, obviously, he's a wealthy individual. He's going to be in it for somewhat of himself, most likely. But like, I mean,
what he's done the same is probably true of Trump, honestly.
Well, yes, that's certainly true. I mean, being president of the United States, the most powerful position in the world. I mean, that might be a little bit up for debate in today's day and age, but I would say that that is still true.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like there's certainly like a desperation for power, and as long as you please the people who got you to that position of power or authority, then they're not really going to bat an eye if you use it for your own interests.
Yeah, generally.
Mm-hmm. What else? I guess here, let's go off of that for a second. So another issue sort of within the right. Let me see if I can find this here somewhere in my bookmarks. Where are we? So okay, this post here. So this is this has been a talking point. This is, I guess, kind of more of the personification of what you would say your what do you want to religious conservatives versus secular conservatives,
Yeah,
or even like
exactly.
old school versus like MAGA conservatives, whatever you want to call it. So this is what's his name? Scott, I think his name's Scott or something like that. He led a massive movement in the state of Pennsylvania to register voters for Trump. Many would cite him as a massive factor in Pennsylvania actually going to Trump in the general election.
Right.
Because of his efforts. And of course, Pennsylvania, what was one of the most important states in that election, that Trump, I didn't really necessarily need to win because he won like every swing state, but
Yeah.
before all the votes were counted, it really was kind of that one where like once you win this, it's kind of over sort of thing.
Right.
So
Pennsylvania was definitely the one
so
I was watching during the election.
I stayed up way too late on the election still. I'm slowly trying to fix my sleep schedule because I really need to. I'm trying to get to bed by midnight, at least on the weekdays.
That's
just
pretty impressive.
Because 2 a.m. to 10 is not cutting it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the problem with this is that Scott is gay and is in a gay relationship, as this photo illustrates. And so there's some individuals that say this guy should be exiled from MAGA. This is disgusting. Now, this shows, now, of course, the modern MAGA movement with Trump tends to be a lot more libertarian or a lot more lenient on a lot of these cultural issues. And this is one of my things that I notice is that, like, I feel like we sacrificed a lot of values or took a little bit away from them for the sake of gaining some votes. I mean, nowadays there's a lot of gay people, there's a lot of people of color like that who have no problem affirming with the right or standing with the right because they feel that it's now a safe place for them. And though at least for gay people or LGBTQ community, I'm not particularly convinced that is the case. Yes, sure, like people aren't really going to complain about getting your vote, and sure, they're not going to like push you off a building when you attend a Trump rally or anything like that. But like the thing is that there's still a large portion of conservatives that do hold somewhat strictly to biblical law. And so let's just look at what Skeletor's response is to this, because I think that his response is pretty good. So first of all, he basically just gives his reasoning for why homosexuality is a sin, which is a heavily debated issue, mostly to the application of that, or even some of the semantics, such as is it homosexuality as in the actions of homosexuality, or is it simply the being attracted to the opposite sex is the sin? Of course, in that instance, it would just be lust, and I think the genders are relevant in a case of lust. But generally speaking, I think it's very, very clear that at the very, very least, homosexuality activity, so homosexual sexual activity, I would say, as well as being in a same-sex romantic relationship, would be considered sinful. But I personally don't think struggling with attraction to the same sex is necessarily sinful. I think you could argue that it's just a temptation, and I think it's very clear within the Bible that temptation is not a sin.
That's where I would stand on the issue too.
And yeah, obviously you're gonna have like your fiery Christians, you're gonna have your Melanie Max who love to use the F slur for clout at this point. But anyways, that's a different conversation. But anyways, I think it's very, very clear within scripture. I'm not gonna do a deep dive study here that it is wrong. This is just one verse. And of course, like a lot of the arguments you'll hear from the opposition, we're just like, oh, translation, culture differences, whatever. I think that there's some copes that you might hear from more liberal theologians or churches in this issue, but
well, the other thing is if we're looking a little more at like the people who are denying that the Bible is opposed to homosexuality in general, you kind of have a divide because there's the people who are like, no, that's not what the Bible is actually saying. And then you have the people who are like, who cares what the Bible's saying? It's not even relevant. So there's definitely not a united front over there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Bible's pretty clear that homosexuality, or like you said, homosexual sexual activity at the very least, is not something God looks favorably on. It's a sin.
Mm-hmm. However, what I like about this is that what Skeletor does is he takes this, which a lot of his fans or a lot of people on the political right would agree with, and then he decides to essentially turn it into a teaching moment with this. God isn't only opposed to homosexuality. And then he basically just lists off some other stuff that we might see, such as greed, have non-biblical divorce and remarriage, cheating on their spouse, premarital sex, stuff like that. And then he basically just says, hey, you are in the same boat. And this is a very, very important teaching. This is basically how I would probably approach this issue. I think it's really, really well done. It shouldn't be too difficult to explain a lot of this. I mean, this is basically the whole take the plank out of your own eye before you remove the speck in the brother's eye sort of situation. Right. It's somewhat, it is an instance of hypocrisy that we see. And then he basically just goes on to share the gospel, which I think is very, very smart, to tie a lot of controversial stuff, talking about sins, and then you can tie them straight back to the gospel very, very easily, which is good. But I mean, the thing is that this is probably for the foreseeable future. This is going to be a conflict that we see on the right, at the very least culturally. Even if there's a lot more lenient, more libertarian, more passive ideology in it on the political front, for sure on the cultural front, or even just within just sort of an infighting thing that we'll just be seeing within the movement.
Yeah, I feel like this is a tricky issue because on the one hand, I'm like, yes, 100% homosexuality as well as all these other things listed here are sinful things to do, and we should discourage people from doing them as much as possible. But at the same time, like the Republican Party and MAGA and even cultural conservatism is not Christianity. It's not like some God-ordained thing. I'm not conservative politically because the Bible says or God says you must be a Republican. I'm conservative politically because the values in political conservatism and the people who political conservatives would generally elect to office are the people who would institute the policies and the laws that I think would create the best culture and the culture most conducive to the spread of Christianity and the harmonious living of Christians. So we can't treat the Republican Party or conservatism or MAGA like it's the church and like start judging everybody based on their morality because they're probably not Christians. Some of them definitely aren't Christians, and in that case, it's not our job to judge them. I don't know. That's kind of a rant, and I don't really have a conclusion to it. I guess my point is just that, like, I think conservatism is important, and I think that it's better than liberalism, but it's not Christianity, and I don't think we can judge everybody who's voting Republican by the standards of Christianity.
Yeah, I think that's where it is tricky, is that like no matter what we do, there's going to be sin within the conservative movement. I mean, even the best of Christians are still plagued by sin within their lives. So that's where it does get tricky. That's why, like, where, I mean, how much do you really want to cause anger, hatred, infighting? Because of that, of course, you got to be careful not to be hypocritical as well. Of course, if you're talking about all sin broadly, then everyone's a hypocrite in that sense.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit difficult, and you have to find the good balance of being able to call stuff out without doing so in a, I guess, self-righteous aspect, being ignorant of your own sin. But that is, I guess, me personally, one of the things that I'm most conflicted with right now is trying to just determine to what extent should we actually try to apply Christian ethics within politics. I guess that's a little bit more broad than this specific issue, but it's certainly something that is going to be up for discussion in the future. It's going to be interesting to see, will culture just progress so far left that even the conservative party is too far, too progressive for a lot of Christians to be able to vote for with a clear conscience, to the point where Christians are going to be completely alienated from politics. Will it ever reach that point? That's hard to say. I think that given an infinite amount of time, it will eventually happen, but yeah, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So was there anything else that we needed to talk about? I can't remember if we had anything.
We had that one tweet from Zoomer we mentioned.
Oh yeah, where did I put that?
I'm sharing it right now.
Oh, you're saying it. Okay, yeah. Got you. Oh, right. So this was, oh my gosh, this is probably easily Trump's most frowned upon move from the conservatives, by appointing Paula White as, what was her position? I can't remember. Like
faith advisor of the White House or something like that.
Something like that. Whatever. So Paula White is, I mean, Zoomer pretty much highlights it right here. Paula White is a very, very questionable Christian leader who, for some reason, I'm not 100% sure, is gained a lot of fame. But from what I've seen, and I will point out that I haven't really heard Paula White speak. To my knowledge, I might have heard her on the radio once. The name did sound familiar when I saw it. So, but maybe, and I'm guarantee every pastor I've ever heard on the radio said some like the most out of left field analogy of all freaking time.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
What the heck does that even have to do with anything? And it's just surface level stuff. So that's not a good thing if I've heard her there. But from what I've seen, people seem to be condemning her as a prosperity preacher. I've seen some people refer to her sort of as word of faith or hyper charismatic, which is very problematic. Of course, to a lot of Christians, the fact that she's a woman in church leadership is enough of a problem. For me, I do think that the role of a pastor of a church is supposed to be a man. Of course, most men are not qualified for that. And that's another issue, too, is even disregarding her gender entirely. It seems to me that she doesn't have proper credentials, proper theological understanding to actually be a pastor of a church, which I think is another thing. Because, I mean, the Bible is very, very strict about the rules that pastors must, or like, I guess the, what do I want to call it? Attributes that a pastor has to hold in order to actually be able to be a pastor. And I've not seen much evidence that Paula White would actually fit a lot of those. Now, of course, is she, I'm pretty sure she is considered a pastor for some church or whatever. Of course, is her role in with Trump. Is that being a pastor? Not really. So I mean, or maybe it is. I really don't know. I didn't look too much into it, but I think regardless of what her actual specific role is, she's probably not the most qualified for the position, or the one that most of the Christian right would want to be in that advisor position for Trump.
I feel like Trump appointing her as the faith advisor shows kind of a misunderstanding of like the state of Christianity in America, because it feels like she was meant to be like the compromise pick. We pick like kind of the popular radio preacher who's also a woman, so she's not that conservative, and we make everybody happy because she's a Christian, she's popular, and she's a woman. And instead,
Right.
for those very reasons, he's managed to make pretty much everyone unhappy with this pick. Like
Right.
it just feels like I don't really understand what's going on with American Christianity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's just kind of like the fault of like the mega church, mega churches with their worship bands that release actual music and
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. It sort of has warped the perspective of what Christianity is
Yeah,
to I guess someone probably like Trump, who at least rhetorically seems to be more or less Christian, but of course that could just be a political stunt, for all
right.
we know, because obviously, as the leader of the Conservative Party, are going to have to get the approval of the Christians because they are a large portion of conservatism in the United States still. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's really difficult to say. I'm not 100% certain of Trump's actual faith status. Of course,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it is God who knows Trump's heart and is able to judge his heart from that standpoint. So I'm not going to make an absolute claim about Trump's salvation status or anything like that. But I just think that I haven't. He doesn't seem to have a proper, complete understanding of Christianity. I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if he has fallen for prosperity gospel. Obviously, he is very, very wealthy, so there could be some tie into that. um, but there's obviously there's still just a lot I just don't know. So
Right. Yeah, that like Trump and Christianity is a tricky issue because I think he's definitely kind of tried to market himself as a Christian as a way to appeal to the Christians in the conservative movement in America. And like I've just never been fully convinced that he's a Christian. But again, like you said, it's not for me to say, well, Trump is
yeah.
a Christian or Trump isn't a Christian, because I just
Mhm.
don't know. But I think at the very least, based on both his past actions and things like this, appointing Paula White as faith advisor shows that he he probably doesn't have a super deep understanding of Christianity
Mhm.
if he is a
But I think
Christian.
there at least seems to be evidence that he's at least somewhat interested in Christianity,
Sure.
or at least takes it seriously enough. Of
Yeah.
course, he said some things about wanting America to be a Christian nation, which has garnered some slack, uh, um, from the internet, of course. but
Mhm.
but I think that at the very least, I think Christians are going to be in a better place under Trump than under like a Democrat leader. I
Yeah,
don't see
probably.
Trump persecuting Christians anytime soon. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily say a Democrat president would either. Obviously, freedom of religion is going to be something that's very, very difficult to overcome.
Well, right, absolutely. But like you tell us we're at the wrong convention, we're going to leave your convention and vote for the other candidate, you know? And that
That's a
candidate's
very
probably going to be
yeah
more favorable to us.
right. But it is kind of interesting how I don't think I've seen a single post on the internet anywhere trying to defend Paula White, which of course I think goes to Zoomer's point in this post. Um, that just shows that she's generally disliked for whatever reason on all sides of the church, um, which is just kind of funny to think about.
Yeah.
Um, Of course, what will Trump respond to the backlash with this? I think there's a good chance that he does. um, and he probably already has seen like, oh shoot, maybe this wasn't a good choice. Everyone is disapproving of this.
Right.
um, of course, what will he do instead? It's hard to say for certain. And of course, like,
I would expect him to just try and bury it, honestly, because I
possibly.
feel like when you're the president, you can't really go back on a decision like this because that just makes you look kind of weak and wishy-washy. But you also
Right.
don't want to double down and be like, no, it was a good choice, because then you're just going to alienate people. So I suspect that as soon as all this dies down, we will not be hearing much about Paula White for the next 4 years.
Possibly. Yeah, we'll see. And I think that like even like having someone like JD Vance who seems to have a much stronger understanding of Christianity than Trump does. um, Even if JD Vance is also relatively new to the faith, I think that's right. Not 100% sure. I know his wife is Hindu,
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that, but I
so.
think they were
Yeah,
married before JD converted to, I believe, Catholicism. I think he's a Catholic.
sure.
Which of course, and they, I think they mentioned something about raising their kids Catholic. So I think that's there's like a verse that says like it's that you shouldn't like get a divorce or something if you've been
Right,
already married. Of course, like
right.
you'd want to avoid marrying a non-Christian as a Christian, but if you're already married, then assuming that they're not going to like impact your faith or something like that, then you should remain married. I can't remember exactly how the verse goes. I'm pretty sure it exists though,
Yeah, I know the
right?
verse you're talking about. I know what it generally says. I don't know where it is in the Bible.
Yeah, I don't either. Um, yeah. Anyways, so that's that. Gosh, do we want to talk about the Nala situation?
I would say probably no, because we're at
No.
42 minutes right
Wait,
now. But
that's probably fair. That's a yeah, that's a whole nother mess. I've tried to defend her as much as I can, but it gets increasingly more challenging too.
mhm,
um, but and that's all I want to say about that for now. Anyway, so yeah, the future of conservatism is going to be quite interesting. The
yep,
future of the Republican Party is going to be interesting. I think that I could see if, assuming Trump's term goes well, I think that Republicans could have a stronghold in the government for possibly even up to like 10 plus years because of how uh, bad it seems like the Democrat Party situation is. So who knows?
yeah,
Of course, what will actually happen to the right? Will they continue to become more progressive in their values as a way to appeal to more individuals to gain more votes, or will they be as much of a strong force that they relatively stay the same? It's hard to say.
it will be interesting to see for sure. And I think you made a good point there that while we've been talking about how the right is fairly fractured or beginning to show signs of fracture, the left is much more fractured than the right now. I mean, the election loss was a huge blow to the left, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if
And
you saw like the was it the DNC where they were electing like chairs or whatever for the actual Democrat Party. That was a complete mess as well. If you've watched that,
I have not seen that,
no,
but I
oh
am not
man,
at all surprised that
they're
it was a
like,
mess.
oh, they still seem to be focused on identity politics without realizing that that is exactly why they lost.
Yeah, they identity politics killed them.
But I'm gonna be really, really curious to see. Like, I don't even know who the heck they'd throw up against, presumably Vance, for the next
I have
presidential
no idea.
election.
I mean, I don't know politicians that well, so me not knowing doesn't really mean anything, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
chew on
we'll
head.
see. She went,
She would
she went ahead.
win too.
Yeah, and then we get a she would. She's not old enough though, not yet though.
Oh, you're
She's
right.
close
Dang it.
though. She's close.
Dang.
Um, oh no. Dude,
They never
I do
would.
not want to think about what politics is going to be like if influencers start running for office. I do not want to see like a Mr. Beast versus Asmongold presidency. Like,
That would be horrible.
but you know, hey, if Shu becomes president, then we get her husband as what is it for first man? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Would it be called? And he's based, so that might be good.
Yeah.
anyways, so that's
Anyways.
we're rambling too long now. We're gonna end it here.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Hopefully, be next week. Hopefully, once a week. I know we missed last week, but anyways, yep. See you next one.